So, I've recently gotten into this somewhat popular video game called Valorant. It's a first-person shooter game developed by the popular gaming company Riot Games. I don't typically play shooter games since I've been addicted to this other less popular MOBA game for my entire life. But since Riot wasn't satisfied with the money they already took from me, they decided to take a little more. Like I said, I don't like shooter games. They're always so cluttered, bland, or incredibly busy. But Valorant stood out from the rest. Inverse had an interview with the art director Moby Franca, who stated that the Valorant art style was defined by clean lines, tidy gradients, and pleasing angles. Franca goes on to talk about how Valorant's art style negotiates a careful balance between realism and cel-shaded animation, or the illustrative visual design. Although Moby Franca isn't given complete credit on Valorant's initial game design, at the time he was the lead art director for the game, so it would make sense that he had some influence in the art design for this game. Growing up, Franca had a difficult life. He was born in a poor Civil War hospital outside of Washington, D.C., where toys were rare. At the age of 3, he sells his first piece of art for $75, which is used for groceries. He works out of his mother's art studio, but has a difficult time in school, being beaten up for being the only white kid. He learned from his brother that he could get financial aid to go to an art school just like him. There, he learns color theory and nothing digital, believing that you can't understand color if you can't touch it. Still living the starving artist life at the age of 29, Moby finally gets a job offer from Valve, the game company, thanks to an art school friend. While working under Victor Antonov, who was the leading art director for Half-Life 2, Victor's push to incorporate London, Edinburgh, and adventure stories like Melville's Moby Dick into the world of Half-Life 2 actually helped to switch Moby's attitude about the video game world when he realizes that he could blend his love for analog oil painting into this digital medium. Later on, Moby goes on to lead the art direction for Team Fortress 2 and then works on titles such as Left 4 Dead, Dota 2, and Portal during his 11-year tenure at Valve. By 2013, Franca joins Riot Games and becomes the art director for their League of Legends game, and goes on to lead a team of 90 artists working on R&D projects that will help shape the future of esports, dancing between the DNA of design, narrative, and art. Now, Franca aims to create memorable, timeless visual design that complements gameplay clarity. Clearly, he has been successful. During Valorant's production, Overwatch had been released, becoming a huge hit within the game industry. Every game being developed was looking to copy Overwatch, but Franca urged his team to look outside of the game industry in order to find their inspiration. He wanted to see what he could find outside of the smog when he worked on TF2, and then he came to Riot Games. The team wanted to look at what he did on TF2, but he refused. He told them, look at what they looked at. His main focus was that the art needed to complement the gameplay, not be distracting from the gameplay and muddy the waters. From the interview, it was clear that he was the type of person who's trying to push the boundaries of art, never really knowing if it's going to work or not, but he was willing to take big risks. If we took the Art Deco, cyberpunk, anime, and realism styles and threw it into a blender, we would get the Valorant art style. The Art Deco style originated in France from the mid to late 1910s, showing its final form in Western Europe and the US by the 1930s. It's pretty recognizable by its bold geometric shapes with a focus on symmetry and balance. The cyberpunk aesthetic tends to focus on a futuristic and dystopian aesthetic that appeared around the late 20th century. Its key characteristics tend to focus on high-tech imagery and futuristic fashion. Although Valorant isn't quite set in the future, the lore of the game is set in a world where they have a futuristic source of power known as Radianite. This leads to our characters having supernatural abilities and technology that has yet to reach its full potential, ranging from technology being imbued with Radianite to the agents themselves having this supernatural power. Although these characters do tend to have exaggerated features, they are very reminiscent of anime characters with those extreme clothing styles and vibrant colors we would never see in real life. Even with everything mentioned before, Valorant still maintains its sense of realism through its realistic character animation / sound design and environment design. I would totally believe that these buildings could exist in our world. They even decided to list the coordinates to the location of every map's inspiration in the real world. Of course, not all of Valorant's designs can only be pointed at the future. Much of Valorant's background designs can be reminiscent of various artistic movements and historical periods. Let's take the Art Nouveau movement for example. Parts of this style can be found everywhere. This style was a highly decorative and innovative art movement that emphasizes organic forms, curvilinear lines, ornamental detail, whiplash curve, and stylized typography. Much of this can be seen within Valorant backgrounds as well. Some other maps have clear influences from the Industrial Revolution mixed in with future technology, like the map Bind, where you can see the pipes and factories slowly leaking into the more traditional cities. Generally, the story of Valorant is primarily about secret government agents fighting each other to get their hands on the radionite. So, it would probably make a lot of sense that many of the Valorant characters have a militaristic appearance, similar to the real-world Special Forces units. However, they had taken special care in making sure that each character was distinct from another. Even just by their hands, the artists had taken great care to make sure that they were distinguishable from the next, unique from another.
From there, once we've got a hook that we feel good about, we start bringing in a concept artist and a narrative writer and really starting to flesh out the different thematic aspects of the character. And so for a character like Neon, that starts out of like, okay, she can run. And we're like, all right, let's think about what are sprinting thematics. Like we looked at like Olympic runners, we looked at running gear, we looked at athleisure, all of these things that like when you look at her, you're like, okay, cool, I get what she's about at a glance without having to think too deeply. And our goal there is to really just lay out a foundation for the character so that when other people come on board, they have a good structure to work with.
Not every character is based in reality. Some are actually based on fantastical or mythological stories from history. For instance, the Agent Phoenix is clearly based on the Firebird from mythology, having the in-game ability to be reborn just once, staying alive long enough to kill everyone before his flame burns out. The Agent Yoro is based off of the Japanese mythology, most closely related to the Oni, in regards to the mask he puts on before he rips through dimensions, teleporting behind his enemies. And a final example would be Sky, who has the more fantastical elements as she uses the wooden totems to summon her creatures, establishing the existence of druidic-based magic within the world of Valorant. In the end, Valorant's art style is a growing fusion from various influences that creates a visually captivating world that is both familiar and fantastical, thanks in part to the Watchful Eye of Moby Franco. Overall, Valorant's seemingly futuristic art direction is rather influenced by the older art styles and the personal history of its artists, which contributes significantly to the game's visual appeal and immersive storytelling. It's a testament to the creativity and the innovation of developers at Riot Games, who've crafted a world that seemingly blends the past, present, and future in a captivating and engaging gaming experience.